What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Outlier podcast. I have Tom Sosnoff ready to wrap up 2024. Stellar year, super fun time. How'd you fare out there?
How did I fare? Um, I think it was an average. I'm a contrarian, so it's a little bit of a when you have a straight one dimensional, one directional market, sometimes that gets a little tough for me. I had um probably only really one horrible trade all year, and the rest I think was like you know, was a pretty average year for me. I did not knock the ball out of the park this year, and I didn't get hurt either. It was about an average year. I should have done better, but um I sold out some passive longs a little too early, I guess.
Yeah, and you actually preambled into the next question. Two questions I had for you is I always think it's a weird question to ask, but I'm always curious the response. Like of a trade that was memorable for a good reason and bad reason, not necessarily best trade, worst trade, but memorable trades. And again, positive memory and then negative memory. What takes you to a dark place? It sounds like you had a bad trade. I'd love to hear about that one. Was it Nvidia?
Uh yeah, my worst trade of the year was Nvidia. But it was Nvidia because I I got stupid. That's all. It wasn't Nvidia because, I am a person that completely accepts the fact that sometimes the stock wins.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I'm going to assume I've had hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of losing trades in my career. So I would think that I'm very comfortable, not being right. Um, I think that, um, no, it can't be millions. So hundreds of thousands, let's say. And so I'm okay, losing to a good competitor, like a worthy opponent. But in the case of Nvidia, I got a little pig-headed towards the end of that move and just did some stupid things. So yeah, that was my worst trade of the year. You know,
Walk me through the stupid things.
size,
And
size.
was it initial size or was it scaled
No,
in size?
it was what I call angry size.
Love that. That's good. A little bit of revenge trading. We all need that in our
Yeah,
lives.
yeah, it was a little bit. Well, it wasn't. Yeah, I never got to the point where I even deserved revenge. I was, it was just an angry, egotistical,
Good.
like you can't hurt me, like you can't hurt me. So I'm gonna go and, you know, I knew I couldn't move the markets, so I just thought, I was getting it at the right price, and I was about 3 or 4 months early.
Got it. And what was the scaling and protocol that you did? Was it anything specific or was it based
No,
on gut feel? Like as you saw it do something,
No,
you're
it
like,
was
okay,
based
now
on ego. It's the worst kind of scale. It's the ego scale. I'm not a scalar type trader. I'm a um I'm a lump summer,
okay. That's what I
you know.
thought.
Yeah, I'm purely a lump summer. So I'm not somebody that dollar cost average. I don't roll in over time. I don't allocate in over time. I'm usually one of the reasons that I've been able to hang around this business for so long and not really ever get hurt is because I don't add to losing trades very often at all. For me to
Unless it
add
makes
to
you mad.
losing trade, yeah, for me to add to a losing trade, it is incredibly rare. Like I
Got it.
can accept losing, but I won't take myself down by adding to a losing trade. Like I'm not pigheaded about it. I don't fall in love with my freaking trades. But every once in a while, I do something pretty fucking stupid. And that would be, like I'll just let my ego get in the way. And I just did it yesterday in Tesla, and did it like 6 months ago in Nvidia. But the rest of the time I'm pretty good.
It's so funny. I was literally just going to ask you about this move in Tesla. So beautiful. What do you think of it?
The move in Tesla is ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm mad about it, not because of not even because of the move in Tesla, but because of what I feel like is a um it's just something that yeah, look at that. I feel like I feel like this whole Tesla thing is such a bad indictment of what's going on in America right now and what's going on in politics all over. Like it kind of makes me sick. And so, I don't like the fact that all of a sudden the presidency is for sale. I don't like that at all. I don't like the fact that the idea of cleaning out the swamp is really making the swamp that much worse. I just feel like it's a very dangerous precedent to set. Incredibly dangerous.
So when you see stocks like this gap up after the election is known, is that the way that you're thinking? Is that this is? Do you think that this is like forecasting future policy decisions and that's being priced in, or do you just
No,
think this is? Yeah,
I don't think
explain.
it's forecasting future policy decisions. I think it's forecasting. I don't think it's forecasting anything. What I think it is, it's making a statement that, hey, you know what? If you're willing to commit a certain amount of loyalty, which can be measured in hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, we're willing to give you whatever you want. Even though this is a democracy, it doesn't matter.
Now,
It's kind of that's what it means.
and what do you think of that in context against, like, if we look within the energy sector, we know that there's a bunch of stuff in there that is doing well, but then there's also buckets that are doing poorly. And to me, that would indicate that it's starting to think about in forecast policy expectations. So if we think that we're going to drill more, things that drill will probably be doing well. If we think that we're going to roll back green energy companies are probably not going to do as well. Do you think that's part of this or no?
If it's part of a platform, it doesn't bother me at all because that's already priced into the market.
I see.
So if you're talking about, a political party platform, then I'm fine with that because that's what that's what people voted for, and that was known all along. So efficient market theory says that that's already priced into the market. I have no issue with that. I don't think there's been a change in policy, so I think that's already priced in. I'm talking about something different.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, and I can pick up that nuance. That's why I use this example to
Yeah,
understand the
yeah,
nuance, which makes sense.
yeah. I
Yeah,
don't care about things that are, like if you campaign that, hey, this is who I am, this is our party platform, then that's fine.
I see.
No problem.
I see. Yeah, and then did you see there's a ETF? It's called DXYZ. It's like the Destiny 100. It's kind of like a smaller fund that invests in different kind of non-public companies, SpaceX being one of them. And that also flew off the handle. I don't know if that's something that you picked up on your radar or not.
I don't trade that. It makes me a little nervous when they say that ETFs are investing in non-public companies.
Right.
I don't know exactly what that means and what valuation. There are some insane valuations, and I think you got to be really careful about, you know, I don't think there's a bigger, um, I would almost say right now in the listed markets that Elon Musk might be a bigger single point of failure risk than Trump even. So it makes me very nervous to have any investments in. I was shown the SpaceX deal like 3 times already, different chances to get into SpaceX, and I had zero interest. So
Really?
yeah, zero.
Just
I
because
thought the
it's a single point of
valuations,
failure?
well, one, the single point of failure, and two, the valuations are just insane.
I
Like
see.
you're overpaying by, it's almost like, if you could, would you buy, you know, uh, would you buy MSTR here? And no, because the valuations are, it's trading 230% over Bitcoin. No, I have zero interest.
What do you
Like
mean?
like
It's intelligent leverage though. It always works.
yeah, it always works because it's a Ponzi scheme, and the Ponzi schemes always work until they don't. As long as you keep buying the crap, yeah, you can. It's intelligent. I love the term intelligent leverage
I
because
know. It's so
because
good.
if you can buy something, if something's worth $1 and you can pay $3 for it, it's intelligent leverage if it goes to $4. It's the dumbest thing ever, and a Ponzi scheme if it goes to $2, or $1. So it's like, yeah, it's intelligent leverage until it's not. So yeah.
Got it. Yeah, it's interesting because I was in DXYZ for a little while just because I like the idea of SpaceX. I like the idea. I don't know. I'm just fascinated by space, but I'm
Yeah.
interested that it's curious that they were pitching those kind of valuations to you for something like that. But
Oh,
I guess it
they
also.
weren't. I mean, these are all. What happens is that people that have been in early, that are early either seed
Oh, I
investors or
see.
employees. They what they do is they go to these brokerage firms that are all
Yeah.
over the place. Different kinds of small investment, registered investment advisors, that kind of thing, and they package together anywhere between, let's say, 10 million and 50 million dollars worth of equity at a valuation, under market, slightly under market, and just because they want out.
Right.
And and I've done it before, and it's been incredibly successful with certain companies, and done it before, and I still have open trades left. So I do buy companies that are not public. um I did it. My biggest winner was Reddit recently,
Hmm.
but I'm in some other ones, and um, and we'll see what happens. They haven't gone public yet. I have no idea, but Musk scares me because I consider him to be risk on lots of different levels. I consider him to be a risk on a political level, because at some point, um, Trump and Musk are like they're the they are the odd couple to the extreme. It is the extreme odd couple relationship. And being the best friend or the best buddy of Trump usually doesn't last too long. Like it's it's not a position for life, let's put it that way. And neither Trump or Elon have a lot of friends in the world, I don't think, other than, each other right now. So I don't see either of those two guys lasting as friends. And I think it's gonna hurt both of them when that comes crashing to a halt. So I do think that's a single point of failure.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting perspective because when I look at the relationship, I can see elements that they clearly align, but then I can see elements that they clearly don't. And I was always curious how that was going to flesh out, specifically like the EV side of things, right? Because they're talking about getting rid of the EV credit and whatnot. That obviously would naturally not be helpful. But I just took it as like a net weight positive, meaning they align on more than they disagreed. I assume you're thinking sooner or later that unwinds and turns into,
I have no
yeah.
clue. I think here, let's put it this way. I think it's priced to perfection.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
It's like the perfect marriage, but it's like a made for TV marriage, like whatever, that Bachelor or whatever it is. Like
Yeah,
this would be
perfect. That's what we need.
the older Bachelor type thing. And it's a made for TV marriage that in 6 months or 12 months from now, you're gonna like, they're not even talking to each other. That's the way I see it.
Well, we'll have to put a line on it and see how it goes because that's a fun bet. I'm sure
Oh,
that'll
this
probably be on the.
if you could bet on it, if there was an event-based contract on this, I think this would be the one bet I might mortgage the house for.
I love it. Now, the other thing I was curious about is why are there drones above New Jersey?
That bothers a lot of people. You know what's so crazy? That does not bother me for some reason. Like, of all the nutty things that drive me crazy and all the things that people worry about, there are so many people even at our firm, that are all bent out of shape about this. And for me, I couldn't care less.
It's been I find it so entertaining listening to all of the different conspiracy theories. That is always one of the funnest
I mean,
things.
does somebody want to buy New Jersey? Do they want to take over New Jersey? I mean, we will trade New Jersey for, like, I mean, maybe we can, I'm trying to think what's about the size. New Jersey's pretty big. I mean, maybe we can get Sweden for it or something. Like,
I
love
mean,
to make a trade.
I think everybody would do that in a heartbeat. Like Sweden for Jersey. I'd like, yeah, that's not even
I'm
close.
not sure. I'm not sure what the drones are. I'm not sure what the game plan is, but yeah, yeah. Like, if you had to pick a state, would you pick Jersey? Sure, go ahead, take it. Well, we're okay with that.
So maybe it's the aliens taking Jersey. You heard it here first, everybody.
Yeah,
Tom
yeah,
thinks
yeah,
it's
yeah.
aliens. Yeah, it's good.
No, no. I
Um,
actually, the whole drone thing, for some reason, I just can't get into it. I don't care.
that surprises me. It's just so weird to not care at all. I could get
I don't
like
care
not
at all,
sleep
at
over it.
all, at all, at all, because I'm not an alien person. I'm not a UFO person.
At
Like,
all?
no, no, zero, zero,
The universe is
zero,
huge.
zero.
We're the
Zero.
only ones.
I don't know if we're the only ones, but I'm not a, yes, here we're the only ones. You're never going to
Damn.
get me. You're never ever going to get me to bite on the whole alien, the whole alien thing. We're the only
Well,
ones.
we're gonna have to start throwing it out there somehow. Maybe put some like orbs outside your window at night, get you seeing the flying discs.
Whatever you got to do. I'm not good with
um,
that stuff. Yeah, yeah, I'm not good.
is it, and just out of general curiosity, is it just that it's like not tangible enough to really think about it, spend time thinking about other stuff?
Yeah, right,
Yeah, I could
right.
totally see that.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of tangible stuff, what was like a really solid trade that you made this year?
Um, Solid trades for this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I did okay across the board, hanging in there with my contrarian plays. So I'll give you some examples.
Yeah.
All year, I hung in long China. It didn't do anything, but it paid. All year, I hung in, the dollar got killed all year. I mean, sorry, the dollar went up all
Went
year.
on.
Currencies got
Yeah.
killed all year. And I basically stayed short dollar and survived. Um, there were a lot of different groups like that. Like all year, I stayed on on the long side of the bond market and made money. Like it's kind of crazy, but um I hung in with positions that traded range bound. Anything that was range bound in 2024, we did really well. Like we hung in there all year on the range bound stuff. I'm trying to think right off the top of my head, like what would be the best um trying to think
Doesn't
what
have
would
to
be
it doesn't have to be the
best.
top performer, but just something that you
Yeah.
thought was a solid trade.
I mean, there were a few equities that I did really well in this year. But the most I would say, oh boy, I'm gonna say I probably did the best all year with my bond position because seemed to be on the right side of the bond market the whole year. Um, let's think if there was anything else. I was on the right side of crude oil most this year. Um, in the equity marketplace, I didn't have too many stumbles. I think my most challenging stocks in the equity world this year were Tesla in the second half. Tesla really since the election. Before that, I was fine. Nvidia early on in the year, and we might have got a little chopped up in some weird earnings plays over the course of the year. But for the most part, I think I traded the year pretty good.
Were you trading the 10 years, 30 years, all of them?
All of them, 10, 30s, fives, twos, mostly in yield curve trades, but the 10s and 30s. I mean, I'm still long 10s and 30s tonight. Um, uh, Playing the little bit of the Fed number tomorrow, but I went home long 10s and 30s.
And what's the general position you're taking on just futures and then rolling them as they move along, or anything more complicated than that?
Yeah, futures and short puts.
Got it. And
Long futures, short puts.
yep. And with the Fed rate announcement, are you looking to play that as an event itself, or is this more of a thematic drift post rate event?
Um, I'm not playing the actual event itself. I
Got
don't
it.
trade the actual number. I think that to trade a Fed number, you kind of have to be to trade the Fed number itself. You really have to be in the pits, or you have to be uh you kind of have to be a market maker. Like I don't think you can trade the actual number just as a outsider. But if you are um if you're making markets, yeah, you can trade the number. If you're not, I don't think you can.
Why do you think that?
Just it's the old market maker in me. It's just I just think you're too disadvantaged, speed wise and edge wise. You can't really. It's not that it's not it's just because you can't see the order flow around you, so it's hard to tell. what's going on.
And how would you differ that compared to something like an earnings play?
There's no difference. An earnings play is the same thing. An earnings play, any kind of a binary event is, instant gratification. There's no real edge. I consider the Fed number and the earnings plays the same. Except the only difference on Fed numbers, I don't see a big volatility collapse on Fed numbers. So I don't like
Right.
selling a lot of premium going to Fed numbers. The bond premium just doesn't seem to come in. Whereas if you're doing a earnings play, the earnings premium comes in dramatically. So
Yeah.
it's not exactly the same thing. For whatever reason, the bond premium just doesn't come in. I always lay it out. So tomorrow I will lay out bond premium prior to the number, but I just don't seem to get paid that much on it. It's like a struggle.
Yeah. Just have to do it because you got to do it.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah, it's interesting because I actually did a study looking back, especially this year. I was really curious about the FOMC meeting. So I looked back at the movement and volatility, and I found a similar thing to what you found. But the thing that differed was the size of the rate change. It had an impact on the volatility movement.
Sure.
So yeah, which I thought that was pretty interesting, and I'm actually really curious to see how it works on a quarter point real life, like what it's going to do tomorrow. Now, um, specifically for earnings, has your team tracked the variance risk premiums around earnings like back over a specific time frame? The question I want to ask is I'm wondering if you've seen a contraction in the amount of risk premium that you can get from selling premium through an earnings event as compared to 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
There's it's a little bit of a loaded question because um on if you ask me that question, if I had to generalize, I would say yes. Markets are more efficient
Right.
today than they were 5 years ago. So the pricing becomes more efficient because we're trading in tighter markets. So the answer is yeah. But earnings are no different than any other kind of binary event, and they really depend on the levels of implied volatility. I find that earnings in markets like we're in right now are incredibly difficult. When volatility is low and stock market's high, the implied earnings moves are too low for me. And I like earnings moves when volatility is high, and the earnings moves can get sometimes, they feel like they can be much bigger. Like what makes me nervous is, 3, 5, 7, and even some cases 10 or 11%. What makes me less nervous is when it's universally, the implied moves over 10%, then I feel much better about earnings.
Yeah, I totally can see that. And throughout earnings this year, what were the general themes you picked up? Was it about flat? Anything work
They were
well?
tough. I would say about
Yeah.
flat for the year. We the worst one we've had recently was probably AVGO last
Mm.
week. That was a tough one. That move was insane, from um whatever it came out to be, like whatever 50 points or whatever the crazy handle was, you know, on that stock. That was an insane move in AVGO and Broadcom. Um I you know, there was nothing you could do. I mean, it was so far outside the expected move, and then it continued the next day. Today was the first day there was any relief at all, but the AVGO move was probably the most surprising move. My position there was relatively small, so it wasn't disastrous at all, but it was a little painful. But that was probably that I can remember. The recent moves, that was probably the worst. I think the expected move was like $13 or $15. The actual move was, all said and done, almost 60.
Hmm. What do you think of seeing really large cap companies moving like this?
Well, that's a great question because, you know, like there's a couple takeaways from that. First of all, this was it's a big company. It was a $750 billion company that went to like 1.1 trillion. How do you move a freaking steam engine, like a cruise ship, around that quickly? How does a cruise ship pick up a third of its value? How does it increase in market cap by 35% in 2 days? I can see a $3 billion stock going to 4 billion, okay, and going up
Sure.
25%. But I can't see a $750 billion stock going up, to 1.1 trillion in 2 days. Like, it just blows my mind just on an earnings outlook. So I think there's a couple takeaways from that. One is, why do I even need to trade biotechs? Why do I need to trade small cap stocks? Because if you're going to get that kind of liquidity and that kind of stock, there's no reason to trade something junky. And then the other takeaway is, maybe this is indicative of the level of, you know, speculation, complacency, just market greed that's going on right now. And I think it's a scary red flag.
I purposely asked that question because there's been a few instances of moves like this that have stuck out to me in just these really, really large companies. Using AVGO for an example, obviously this one had, again, not justifying the move, but it did have a catalyst. Who do you think saw the outcome of that like, who's the volume that's buying it at 240?
I have no idea. I mean, there's obviously some of it is shorts, and some of it is, different prop firms just trying to get in front of it and race it a little bit. I mean, there's a skill. It's almost like being a poker player at some point. There, there are it's $1 trillion stock, so you can't move it around with, like, your pinky type thing.
Mhm.
But there are games that are played in stocks like this where they think that there's enough short interest and enough weak hands that they can, maybe they felt there's the potential for a little bit of a gamma squeeze. Maybe they felt that, there was a certain that it was susceptible to a little bit of short covering. I don't really know, but that move at that point, like, who's buying it up there? I have no clue.
I want
They
to
got to be
know.
covering shorts.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like who's because I had the similar thought process to you. Like, how does this grow this much as the overall market cap? And then people are
Yeah,
like,
it's
yeah,
ridiculous.
let me grab
The
it here.
company's not worth, either it was grossly undervalued
Right,
or now it's grossly overvalued, but it doesn't go up 40% in 2 days.
right. So then, for this kind of move, if it is shorts, how long do you think it hangs up at a place like that before the short participation is essentially flattened out and then it starts returning back to earth?
It's hard to say. I mean, it was down like $12 today, so it started to come back a little bit to earth today. Um, it depends. It's probably not like just because it rallied whatever 60 points doesn't mean it's going to go back 30 or anything like that. Maybe it's going to go back, 15, 25 points or something like that, and then maybe it's just that's good. Maybe that was the original. It's got to find its level of what it's, what the new valuation is, because it's clearly going to carry a new valuation,
Right.
and see what happens. You can't
When
get
you're
hung up on these trades. You gotta just trade them and move on.
Definitely. For me, it's just fascinating. Like the underlying market activity that leads to that
Yeah.
is very interesting to me because yeah, exactly. It's just anomalous.
Yeah, if you've ever
Um,
traded in those kind of stocks, it's very emotional, and sometimes, you can't explain it until things slow down.
yeah. When you're looking out over 25,
Yeah.
what are the bigger themes that you're looking to play?
Well, I think 25 is going to be a super interesting year, because I do not think that we are looking at a repeat of 2017. 2017 was a year that we didn't even move 1%, and the market just took it easy and tried to figure out, what was going on in this new Trump administration, and the market was trying to figure out, wasn't really sure how to play it, so it ground itself higher for the entire year. No 1% moves all year. It was incredibly boring, and then all of a sudden in 2018, the crap hit the fan type thing. Um, I would think that all of that is going to be accelerated dramatically in 2025. Um, there is the biggest risk to the market, in my opinion, is that um, the market, remember, the market generally doesn't do that well under Republican presidents. The market um, generally doesn't do that well after it's had a move like it's had this, this year. I mean, we've had an insane move the last, basically the last 2 years. And it would be normal for the market to be a little more jittery next year. And plus, Eric, I don't even know the last time that the consensus has been unanimous. Like when you think about it, you know, think about all the years you've been following the market. Think about all the times you've heard people talk about things. When have you ever heard a unanimous consensus on anything,
Normally
let
before a
alone, hey, we're
drop.
going higher? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there is not a single freaking person that thinks that we're not, that doesn't have a projection up 10, 15, 20% for next year. And it's universal. It is unanimous. It doesn't happen. I mean, they can't even get unanimous on a high,
Daylight savings.
they can't do daylight savings. They can't get unanimous on a Heisman Trophy winner or a Hall of Fame player. How is Derek Jeter not a unanimous? Like I'm just saying, like it's insane.
I it's funny. One of the things I use as an example of just government is the fact that daylight savings is still a thing. And we know that there's a bunch of studies about daylight savings, like the day after, like increase in car crashes, heart attacks, like from the lack of sleep, that hour of sleep that's missed. It's incredible. And yet we still like, this is what we should do.
Do you know why they do it? I was surprised by the reading.
I thought it was something to do with agriculture and farming. That's what I've heard. Okay, great. But I'd love to know because I don't get it.
It might have been originally, but that's not why they kept it.
Why do they keep it?
The argument on the House floor was the reason to keep it is that they didn't want kids walking to school in the dark.
For all the kids that walk to school.
All the kids that go to school early in the morning, they didn't want it to stay dark till, kids that go to school before 7:30 in the morning, they didn't want to go to school in the dark.
Give them a flashlight. It'll be all right.
Yeah, I know, but, that's the reason. I would prefer no daylight savings, but that is the reason, and that's why it didn't pass.
Because now they all just get to walk home in the dark? Is that better? Because that's what it gets dark at like 3.
I guess. I don't know the answer.
So that all right, fine. It's good to walk in the dark at one point, but not the other. All right, whatever floats the boat.
Well, my answer would be, well, how do they figure it out in places where it's always dark? I don't know.
Somehow we were just looking at maybe going to Fairbanks to go see the Northern Lights until I realized that at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, it was negative 27. And then I told Mel, I was just like, yo, I don't know if you got a jacket big enough because negative 27 when the sun's up, that's cold, man. Well, Chicago gets cold, but.
Yeah. The Northern Lights thing is a tough one.
Yeah, we saw them when we were in Iceland, and it was fine. Like it wasn't that cold there. That was pretty mellow. But yeah, that quickly got axed off the list. We're gonna go to Calgary now. Go to another cold place. It's just not as cold. That's the idea.
Negative 27 hurts.
Yeah, that's like, I'm not afraid of the cold, but that is like you have to be careful because your skin starts to crack. That's next level cold. Because I did mountain warfare training and my eyebrows would freeze. And then like if I moved my face, I would get cracks in my eyebrows and I would start to bleed. I was just like, yeah, okay, this is a little too much. So I had to put like petroleum jelly. Make sure that my eyebrows.
That's kind of you don't want to do at some point when you're young and you can pull that off and go out without a shirt on, sure, no problem. But at this point, it ain't worth it.
Yeah, at some point you gotta ask yourself, like, what am I really doing here? We have to get you out of here in a few minutes. So I want to pivot and I want to talk about the beginner trader. So we've talked about this. We talked about this a few times, and I know that this is something you spend a lot of time with the research that you guys put out and whatnot. So if there was somebody that was going to start trading in 2025 for their first year ever, what advice would you give them?
Well, I mean, I would be excited for them because the one thing that you have to realize when you start, because you're never going to pick the ideal time. It's like not possible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I don't even know when the ideal time is. But the way I would approach somebody that's just starting out, the way I would explain trading and finance to them is that for the rest of your life, you're going to do this. Like you're never going to stop. Once you get bitten and you start to understand market structure and markets and finance and strategy and trading and all the above, you're going to do it forever. Like it's going to change the way you think. It's going to change the way you think about, wealth creation. It's going to change the way you think about business, entrepreneurship. Every decision you make is going to be, you're going to be able to put it and quantify things and put it into mathematical terms. I think that it's just, that's how I would explain trading to somebody who's just starting out. I would be like, listen, you're going to do this at some point. If you're going to be successful, if you're going to acquire wealth, whatever it is, you're going to do this at some point, or you're going to need to know this stuff. And so just start. Doesn't matter. Just start.
Natural follow-up question is, how do I start?
Yeah, well, yeah, that is one. And I mean, the simple answer is, you have to you open up a brokerage account with a hopefully with Tasty, but with a good, software platform, and you just do something. I don't care if you buy one share of stock, buy or sell one option, do anything, buy some crypto. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't, whatever you do doesn't matter. You're learning new technology, new markets, new strategies, new opportunities. And you have to get started by doing something. I don't know how else to, I don't know how else to, I don't know how to sugarcoat it.
Yeah, well, and I think you hit one of the really important points as far as I'm concerned is that because I started in '07, which was like a middle time. There was information you could find, but not a ton. You obviously started when they were writing it on stone tablets, so the information was a little bit different. But
Yeah.
for people today, they have AI, they have stuff, and it almost feels like they deal with information overload. Like, I have to research this, I have to research this, I have to research this. So you're kind of talking about do something that's similar to you, like find something that's small, not a ton of risk, and
do
just
something.
do
Do
something.
something. Just do something. Make it actionable, make it practical, but do something. Don't just sit there. Like people learn by doing better than anything else.
Completely agree. And for the trader that's starting then over their first year, what should they be focusing on? Like, what are the things that you think matter most?
Number of trades. I know that's going to sound like self-serving and weird, but it's not. The number of trades. Purely, this is a numbers game, and in order to get to a number that helps you understand something, you've got to just do it. Like you're not going to. There's nothing you can learn by just watching and not participating. And I think in the trading world, it may be more true than anywhere else. You have to participate. So that
And
would be my.
and how do they balance participation with probably small account size, limited number of trades that can go on at a given point in time?
Yeah, that's exactly just small size. It
Got
could
it.
be one or two or 10 shares of stock. It could be the amount of money you make or lose is not really relevant. The option trades could be tiny, a couple pennies, a couple dollars, a couple of defined risk spreads, but nothing that requires a lot of capital. And it's just, you know, you've got to get you've just got to get your feet wet. You got to dip your toe. You got to do whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, everybody that does anything starts somewhere. Like it's like, people that say, well, how do I get started? I don't know what to do. Well, anytime you do anything, the first time you hit a golf ball, the first time, I don't know, do whatever it is you do, no matter where you had a first time, just start it, just do it.
I love it. And a couple follow-on questions for a different skill category. You have somebody that's been
Sure.
trading for a year or so, getting their feet under them. What are some of the things you think a beginner trader does to turn the corner into like an intermediate trader? Like, what are the things
Yeah.
that they focus on, think about, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So that's where it starts to get a little more challenging, a little more important. I think the term I like to use is that beginner trader, before they need to get to another level, because they need to prove that everything is repeatable and it's scalable. Because until they do that, they don't know what they have. So I call this the the proof of concept stage. You have to have a proof of concept. And uh and so, this is the challenging part where you have to prove, hey, I can do this repeatedly. Like that's I'm not a one hit wonder. I'm not a one trick pony. I can do this repeatedly, and I'm proving concept.
And how do you think that trader does that in a time frame where the market might show them one thing? The market might just show you up.
Well,
So how do they?
the market, unfortunately, the market's never going to do exactly what you want it to do. So I don't know the answer to that, because that's a tough one, and you're going to have opinions, and you're probably going to be wrong. And so, but I don't know the answer.
Well, I feel like one of the things to plug for you guys is your back testing tool,
Yeah,
because
right.
I do think that can give somebody an idea to test ideas out in a market that they might not see.
Yeah.
Because the path dependent nature of a market, I find that to be one of the really tricky things for people is when they've been trading 3 or 4 years, but the market's been doing one thing. And then when it finally turns, they're like all out of sorts because they've just not seen that before. So actually, you guys
Yeah.
built something pretty cool.
I'm worried about that. I'm worried that there's
Yeah.
an entire generation now. Like, there's literally an entire generation that has never seen a downtick.
Well, I don't know, I think of it as if somebody started in 2020, anytime around there where a lot of people did, they actually got to see quite a lot in a short-term time frame because they got to see a pretty sharp contraction, the unbelievable reversal of like a 3-day bear market, which is like untold. But then they also got a bear market in 22, which is kind of cool. Market was down like 19%.
True. They got a little bit of a bear market in 2022. I'm not sure the impact, but yeah, they did. You're right. I forgot about 2022. Yeah, they did.
Yeah, because I was thinking about it, and again, like I started in '07, but I've only seen 3 bear markets, and 2 of them have been in the last 4 years. So I've been seeing the same pitch nonstop, the same thing.
Yeah, it's been wild. It's been wild.
Yeah, and that leads me to the last question: when the market eventually does roll over, always does, with valuations where they are, where AVGO grows by 40%. How do you think a potential unwind/correction bear market might look? Nobody knows, but might look.
This is the $1 billion question, This is
Good.
the
Well,
$1 billion question.
let's make some money, Tom. Let's get this right,
I
and
know.
then we can cash
I
in.
know. I spend a lot of time thinking about this because, on the one hand, I don't want the markets to implode and crash and
Right.
burn and all that kind of stuff, because everybody's inherently long. It's good for the world. I'm a glass half full person, so I don't want that to happen. The other side to it is I've never felt stronger about the risks, like the pot odds risk in the market right now. Like, what do I think that we could go higher? Sure. There's a chance we could go, I think, maybe 6,300. Let's just say we're 6,100 now, maybe 6,300. I don't see us going too much higher than that, but there's a chance. The flip side of this whole thing, I could see us going down to 5,100 almost overnight, which means I've got like 4-1 downside over upside. Easy. Maybe it's 5-1. And I am a pure pot odds contrarian. So that's my biggest hurdle that I'm got to overcome in my head here. I think there's $4 or $5 of risk for every $1 of upside. And when I get my head in that space, it's very difficult to think, objectively. So that's where I'm challenged with right now.
So if that downside realizes, what do you think? It's a faster move, or do you think it's something?
Oh yeah. Oh, the downside moves are always fast. There's not even there's no there's so many red flags right now, which is like there's not even put skew anymore in the indexes. I mean, the red flags are like the skew is 170. There's no that's the rating on outlier. The market is so anticipating outlier risk that probably won't happen, but the skew numbers are off the charts. There is no put skew, which happens about 10 or 12% of the time, which is insane. And there's, and there is this unanimous bullishness among everybody. Like it's not, are we going higher? It's how high.
And we might not.
I don't know. I mean, the downside scares me. And I don't think the other problem is I don't think anybody's short. Usually, like I think shorts are there and they can pick up and cover some stuff. Man, I don't see it.
Well, on that rosy note, it's time to get you out of here. You got to run into some traffic, but always great to connect with you. For people that want to find you, obviously, Tasty Live, I'll throw all the links in the notes below. But anything else you want to leave people with? Any events you have coming up?
No, we just finished all our events for 20. We did, I think, 26 events this year. It was insane. I've been on the road for like 11 straight weeks. So
I know you kind of, every time I talk to you, you're in the middle of going somewhere, coming back.
yeah,
Like literally
I
every time.
mean, I'm a junkie and I love it. So like I'm not doing it because I have to. I do it because I love it. Um, but I'm not going back on the road until May.
Whoa.
So yeah, so I've got a couple of months off now because I've been on the road for half of this year.
Are you going to go
Half
stir
of 20.
crazy?
No, no,
Okay. You'll be all right.
no. Yeah, I'm gonna be all right. My daughter's having a baby. My son's getting married. I got a lot of stuff going on.
You got tons of stuff anyways. Good. Yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah.
stoked to hear the family's doing well and keeping you busy. That's the way it should be. We got to keep you running around because you're doing a lot of good out there. So thanks for hanging out, Tom.
All right, love it. Thanks, Eric.